Hi everyone, I'm Nina Bambysheva, a staff writer here at Forbes. Joining me now is our Director of Data and Analytics, Javier Paz, and we're here to talk about the latest ranking of crypto exchanges that Javier has just published. Thank you for joining me, Javier.
Hello, Nina. A pleasure to be here.
So we're here to talk about the latest ranking of the best crypto exchanges you just published. So this is not your first list. For those who may not be familiar with it, or those who just need a refresher, can you tell us a bit about the list itself? What types of platforms you've considered, the number of exchanges you've looked at, and your methodology? What were the major criteria you looked at?
Sure. Thank you. Just to be precise, then the last time we ran a list, we had selected 60 entities, and this was a composite of crypto exchanges as well as other financial intermediaries offering crypto to their clients. This year, we're only doing 20, and there's some good reasons for that. So, in terms of what makes us different, the Forbes list is not your typical ranking a firm by volume or some other criteria like, let's say, the number of web visits or the number of coins that you offer, but it's more thoughtful. So we start the list with some 650 approximately exchanges and different service providers, and then we break it down to something more meaningful, some more actionable. So the first test that we applied to reduce that list was to ask the question, how many of these entities have verifiable assets that we can see through a third party. And we looked at Arkham. As Arkham Intelligence is a platform that provides a lot of information about wallets and entities, and we looked at there that and ascertained that approximately 100 crypto exchanges had assets, although not all of them in a significant number. So we then applied that test, and we shaved off right off the bat 550 exchanges that didn't make that cut. And then we started looking at things like how well regulated are they, and we started going deeper into their offerings. What price do they charge for people just starting out as a price taker, and without any discounts or anything like that. And then we went into things like the transparency. We invited them to participate in our surveys. We also looked at their so if they responded candidly to the questions, then they received full score. If they didn't answer in full, then they got partial score. Or if they didn't participate in the survey, they didn't get any score. And that's about 15% of the total. So we went like that through different categories. Regulation was particularly important. It was something like 20% of the total. And we looked at also considerations of not just what you regulated, which is not foolproof not a foolproof way of knowing that somebody is above board, because as we know, FTX in theory was regulated, but it didn't follow the rules. But there were lessons that we could learn from that, and that's why the first test that we did was the Bitcoin and Ethereum holdings test. FTX had some Bitcoin, but much of their balance sheet was made up with their own tokens. So in our list of 20 exchanges, there's none that have their own tokens. Whereas in the list of exchanges that we excluded, the 13 exchanges that we excluded, they represent something like 44% of their total tokens that they hold are their own issued tokens. And Bitcoin and Ethereum only represent 33%. So I think that in itself is a big red flag for not trusting that their tokens will be worth as much as they say that are worth. So we went through various criterias like that, 9 in total, that let us have a composite view of where they're at. But the traditional um, benchmarks like volume, we only consider for 10% of the total, 5% for spot and 5% for derivatives activity. Um, and for products, only 5% as well. Why? Why so low? Because the offer of products can be a double-edged sword, in which, um, on one hand, it gives end users a yield on by staking or lending their tokens, but on the other hand, as we saw with Gemini and others that got into trouble by trusting the wrong counterparties, and as a result, they were not able to make whole their clients up until very recently. So for those reasons, we only think that having the latest products, it's not necessarily super positive per se, but it's not terrible either. Innovation is a good thing, but another point is that if you have a lot of products, but you're not regulated, like in the case of Binance, they're not ranked for several reasons, but one of the reasons is um, they may offer a lot of tokens, a lot of products, but if their main business line is not regulated, um, in any major or significant way, then there's less credibility that they can um, they can they can provide guarantees to their end users that everything will be fine. So that those are some of the considerations that we took into account.
All right. And you mentioned FTX and Binance. As many people know, FTX, which was one of the largest crypto exchanges before it filed for bankruptcy. And a lot has gone on since then. How would you say the landscape of crypto exchanges in the US and globally changed since November 2022?
Right. So we have seen a much more subdued marketplace with fewer participants, but not too fewer than then. So there's been a lot of layoffs as a result of the changes in the market conditions, and we've seen Kraken reduce these employees, as well as Crypto.com particularly. Um, and so we've seen that these painful cuts have been run by most firms, um, but um, but right now we have a resurgence in the number of service providers. So since September of last year, we have seen a rapid increase in the number of the unknowns, crypto exchanges popping up in places like CryptoCompare or CoinMarketCap, um, that tout to have a lot of volume, but they're brand new and they don't have assets to show for it. So we think that kind of self promotion that they do is deceptive, and it's overcome by they having a shorter but more true list, like the ones that we have here at Forbes.
So tell us, what are the best ones? Can you give us a little preview, and what made those top platforms stand out?
For sure. So we have Coinbase, which is the largest, but it's one of the things that it's important to understand is how much larger they are. So if you think about it, they have over $300 billion in total assets. Compare that to Binance's, which is probably 100 plus billion, as the next largest. And in terms of Bitcoin itself, the differences are also stark. Um, in the case of Coinbase, they have over 219 billion, whereas Binance only has something like 59 billion when we measured it. So a huge difference. And So Coinbase has become the gorilla in the room, and and then there's a long list of firms that, and I think also is important to highlight the size of some of the larger derivatives exchange like the CME that is also in number two list. They are not a crypto exchange per se, but they are so important to the crypto markets because they offer what is the closest thing to an official price for Bitcoin, because they do it in a credible way. They they find they, for price discovery, they are probably the best out there, and the cost of trading over there is very low. So and they're open to both institutions and retail individuals as well. Um, we also have Robinhood that has disrupted, um, with their zero trading policy, zero policy for trading the stock market, the options market. We saw how in 2018 they forced the hand of a giant like Schwab and others to match their zero fee on stock trading. So they came initially, they were ignored as a fintech, wannabe, but eventually they were taken much more seriously. And so right now they have tens of millions of traders, and they offer a good 15 assets to trade. So they're very serious contenders as well. We think that over time they're going to force the hand of the Coinbases of the world and others to lower their fees here in the U.S. Um, and that will mean that they have to redo much of the things that they do, because they will have less money to make from it. So that's going to present an interesting challenge for the industry at large. There's going to be more consolidation probably as a result of it, and that's I think is a positive change overall. Then we have a Korean exchange, Upbeat, which is the Coinbase like of South Korea, which has a phenomenal size, if you will, in the country, with some estimated 80% market share, um, and a lot of Bitcoin holdings, and as well as other assets as well. So we think they're pretty serious, and their fees are low. Deribit is the fifth player in our list, and they have just a gigantic base of Bitcoin options to offer, and Bitcoin and Ethereum options. So something like 21, 22 billion as of the latest count, and that's a lot of contracts that are outstanding in open interest, waiting for the Bitcoin price to move up or down. So it's a for sideways markets like the ones we're experiencing today. Trading options is a pretty good way, and the fees are very low. So their move to Dubai from Panama was a very shrewd move. I think it made a lot of sense for them to go in the direction of being regulated. There's one more company that is not in the list. However, we want to highlight how they're going in the right direction, and that is OKX. They may not have the best reputation, but they are trying to get their licenses to get themselves in a better position, hopefully for next year to be considered. But they recently gained in this year licenses in Dubai, or in the Middle East, Bara, as well as in Singapore as a major payments firm, as well as in Hong Kong. They are pending, and they just gained one in Australia. So all good news, and hopefully a sign that they are going to take compliance much more seriously than in the past. So, anyways, those are some of the top five. I welcome you to come and visit. For anybody out there listening, to become more familiar with the rest of the list.
Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission infamously sued Coinbase and is seemingly preparing to sue Robinhood. How were you thinking about those actions when you prepared the list?
Right. So we looked at the substance of the charges raised against these firms, and they seem to be more on the lines of a regulator activism than than really a reflection of a criminal wrongdoing. Which in one case, in the case of Binance, they're pursuing something other than um, than being civil, pursued in civil courts. Um, so that's the difference that we're making in here. So whereas the SEC may have sued um, Kraken, Coinbase, and Robinhood, and Uniswap for not following registration rules. In the case of Binance, it would be something else, much more serious of an allegation support. So for those reasons, we made a distinction between the current charges against this group of firms that made the list nonetheless.
Right. It is important to consider the larger context of the SEC stance on crypto. Now, CME and Robinhood are not your typical crypto exchanges. What else may readers find interesting when they look at the list?
Well, it's a very geographically diverse list. So we have 6 from the US, but 4 from Europe, and then we have 4 from Japan, 2 from South Korea, and 1 from each in other locations like Dubai, and and that's, I think, it reflects a little bit of the diversity of crypto offerings out there. So in the case of the Japanese exchanges, the fees are extremely low. It's a very competitive market. They have more mature regulation. Also in Korea. In Europe, it is less developed in terms of the participants and the adoption that we've seen by the end users, but the regulations are ahead of those of the U.S. And in the case of the U.S., we have obviously a lot of demand for crypto trading here in the U.S., and most of it is captured by the the 6 firms that we identified, but some of it is also going to firms that are not authorized to offer their services to U.S. firms, and that's something that probably will change over time as their compliance increases. But yeah, that's a little bit of how the makeup of the list is unique.
Right. Many people have said that Asian regulators, crypto regulators, are ahead on a lot of the things we are still discussing here in the States. So that is definitely interesting to see. And you've analyzed a lot of exchanges, tons of data. You spoke with other crypto analysts. You reached out to those firms. Now, your average investor doesn't have the time and resources to do all that work. So my question is, I guess, what would you recommend people who are considering starting to trade crypto or are just trying to understand this market better? What simple advice can you give them in terms of choosing a platform? Are there certain things that they should pay special attention to?
Yeah, certainly. So some of the tips we gave investors in our piece was, don't fall for glitzy websites, or don't fall for lists that show rankings based on volume, because those are highly corrupted or deceptive in some ways, important ways. So the best way to do a due diligence process is to go to a place like Arcan and get registered there and check the name of the exchange that you're looking to participate in. First of all, find out how much Ethereum and Bitcoin they have, because if they show very little or nothing, then you probably are you should be running and going somewhere else, because that if 66% of all Bitcoin and Ethereum represents 66% of all cryptocurrencies out there, and this exchange lacks something comparable, where 66 of his holdings are Bitcoin and Ethereum, then there's something wrong with that picture.
For those who are interested in learning more and checking out the full list, please check out Javier's article. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nina.